All right. Welcome everyone to the Cluster Addons meeting. It is the 9th of July, and I can see we have a couple of things on the agenda. I had a look at it, and it doesn't look like we had actions from last time, but a couple of things from Justin. If any of you have other agenda items, please add them now, and if you could, please help taking notes. That would be great. All right. Justin, do you want to?
Yeah, I basically had two items, and one of them was like my action item from last time was to start working on tooling to generate one of our add-on operators as we are prototyping them. I basically sent a PR this morning to KubeBuilder to include that. I can do a demo if that is helpful, but otherwise know that progress should be being made, and it is even easier now to create one of these add-on operators. But we can always pause that until later if we want to do a demo later. But it's there if we need it. It's not very, we just pass pattern equals add-on and magically the add-on appears, or the add-on operator appears. And then I think, well, actually, Lee, do you want to go next? Because there's a more interesting item about API review, which is sort of a bigger topic, I guess. So I'm going to move that to the underneath Lee, your one, because it looks like your one is a sort of status update or an action item follow-up.
Yeah. So something that I kind of started with was attempting to pare down what KubeBuilder would spit out to build the installer itself, which was helpful, right? Because it generates all of the APIs. It took a little bit of a mental leap for me to realize that you could just chop off all the CRD stuff and just use the APIs themselves for component config. This is a personal interest because of our efforts in the other part of the SIG with component standard. I ended up just kind of like dropping the KubeBuilder stuff and writing the package from scratch because the folders that KubeBuilder generates doesn't seem to put the component name in the package API path, which I thought was a little strange. Yeah, I just ran into interesting Kubernetes API stuff yesterday when I started working on this. But anyway, I'm building the code base right now for just a little installer POC that's mostly going to be shelling out and execing stuff and gluing it together with a Kubernetes API that has a list of package refs. So that's what I'm working on right now. That should be PR'd to the repo either like maybe probably midday tomorrow, would be my guess. I'm going to be out for the next 3 weeks after that, just reachable intermittently on vacation. And I would love, once that PR is up, for people to rip it to pieces, just with regard to UX and stuff. And that's where I'm at on that. You wanted to talk a little bit about API review?
If there's nothing else, I will dive into the API review. So I don't know if there has been a discussion that kicked off. I think what originated is, can API groups that are not in KK, the Kubernetes repository, use Kates.io API groups? So for example, if we build a dashboard operator, can we be, for the sake of argument, dashboard.kates.io, or do we have to be something else? And what is involved in being dashboard.kates.io in terms of API review. The API review team volunteered to review any and all APIs that want to be Kates.io. So I figured, well, why don't we put ours in? And I submitted our API for the example core DNS operator for review. And we got, there's not a lot of API surface there anyway. And so we got 2 pieces of feedback. I'll just say before, this doesn't compel us to do Kates.io APIs, but it does mean that if we follow the patterns that they want, that anyone that wants to create a Kates.io add-on should then have a much easier time of doing so. So hopefully, like the dream scenario is we create an add-on that basically is pre-approved, and then only the additional fields need to be approved. So it's a pretty easy process to create a Kates.io add-on operator. The two pieces, so Clayton Coleman from Red Hat kindly had a look. He had two pieces of immediate feedback, one of which was in our spec, we don't clearly define the behavior of version and channel, which is true. We do not. So we should basically document that more clearly. He may have more feedback when we do, but that's the first step. And the other one of which is sort of echoes something we talked about last week, or 2 weeks ago, I guess, which is that the status fields, the health in the status fields, while valuable, don't reflect the Kubernetes pattern of using conditions. And he recommended that we basically not do something different from conditions. And I think 2 weeks ago we discussed, that it's a possible security issue to reflect all these things, that we don't necessarily have a clear use case. And so probably we should pare down the automatic status generation to either just remove it entirely or to use a single condition for health, i.e. healthy. I think one of the nice things about conditions is it's also extensible. So if an add-on operator wanted to put other things in there, wanted to surface other things, there is a mechanism for them to do so, at least from the API, and we could build a mechanism into the example controllers. But I think that feedback is pretty actionable and reasonable. So I am currently quite happy with the API review process, and it feels great. But that's what that bug is about. And I think there will be other discussions about Kates.io groups. But I think the fair warning is if you are creating an operator or a CRD of any kind, don't use Kates.io without being aware that you likely will have to go through API review.
And when you're suggesting Kates.io, are you suggesting subdomains too, as in add-ons Kates.io? Or
correct? Yes. So cops, for example, we started using cops.kates.io, and that is a no-no without API review. So anything in Kates.io and subdomains thereof, yes, is subject to. Currently, there's an ongoing discussion, but I actually thought it was a nice thing to get the API review anyway. It feels like a nice thing to have, and to particularly at this early stage, if we can follow the patterns that the API team believes to be the Kubernetes patterns, that feels like a win.
Yeah, I think it was great feedback around the health and status and moving to conditionals. I think that we wanted to walk and talk just like anything else in the cluster. So that makes total sense to me.
Something that I ran into regarding just domains is that the official recommendation from component standard is to use config Kates.io, and so I wasn't for any component configs, which I wasn't exactly. It kind of feels like the add-on installer configuration is a component config, right? So would that be that kind inside of config Kates.io?
It could well be. I don't know. But that's certainly a good idea. I don't know to what extent the API group should reflect the group that eventually ends up owning it. So if core DNS ends up owning their operator, does that require it to be either core DNS.kates.io or core DNS.io, or can it be config.kates.io/core DNS? Honestly, or addons.kates.io/DNS, or addons.config.kates.io. But I don't know. I think we should ask, perhaps we let the API review discussions die down a little bit and achieve some clarity on where they're going, and then we can ask for that sort of guidance. I would hope that the component config would also go through API review, but I can't imagine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, definitely. It's almost like it'd be helpful to have a map to see what APIs are used and where things appropriately fit into each other. But yeah.
I mean, the names they aren't actually used for anything. So as far as I know, I don't think it even implies like a versioning thing. You can evolve the versions of different kinds independently in theory. So I don't think there's any technical limitations. So we just need some guidelines to establish like sanity, as you say, like a map.
Yeah. Oh, basically owners and I don't know, just organization, like not being super messy.
Yeah, and avoiding conflicts. Like if everyone goes into add-ons like case study, what happens if two different groups have a different view of like what a core DNS operator should look like, for example?
Yeah, and it kind of affects RBAC.
It does if you use the star, yeah, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, we can talk more about it. That's why we're in alpha, right? So.
Exactly.
Yeah, I didn't have much to add. I did kind of have like a thought, which was, does anyone have any concern with like the network interaction that the installer is going to be doing and how flexible it can be if we're like mixing refs between Git, HTTP, and OCI images?
Do you mean if I specify an HTTPS source that it will go fetch it over HTTPS?
Yeah. Similarly, Git, right? Or it just seems like it could get a little bit uncomfortable for people, like lack transparency if you fetch something over HTTPS and then consequently that goes down the dependency tree to fetch something in Git, right? Or,
yeah, I think you should. I think you. So making it relatively easy to mirror something is good. Is a good idea. And then I think so in other words, if there's an official Kate's repo of manifests, it should be relatively easy to copy it to a private web server or S3 bucket or GCS bucket, ideally, and relatively easy to use.
Yeah, or anything. Git repo.
Exactly. And then the other one is, I think I'd be careful about like switching contexts. So if you're pulling from a HTTPS, like a pub or an HTTPS public website, and then you like pull from a local Git repo, that's a little weird, right? So it's sort of like the browser trust model where it's like you can't get to a file. Well, anyway, as we were discussing earlier in a different context. Yes.
Yeah. Basically, like having a ref that goes to a file that was reached over Git, right? That's
a local file. Yeah.
That's really weird. So maybe files are like anything that's not a network resource is only allowed as the first hop.
Yes, or like once you hit a network resource, you're prohibited from then going to local.
Further, I don't know if there's anything in Customize that prevents that right now. If I had to, because that's all customized existing logic right now.
I guess you could argue that once you're applying something from a website, you are implicitly trusting it anyway. But it is certainly surprising to imagine that it would call from a local. It would certainly contradict my mental model of like sanity if a Git repo,
yeah, and I mean all versioning bets are off there, right? So you went into something that was like versioned and like hopefully signed, and then like hopped back out into entropy land. So yeah.
Do you know if
but on the other hand,
like could you have a Git repo and one of the resources is like Etsy password?
That's a good question. I don't know if there's anything protecting against that. We should look.
Because it may be something that we can just say like, well, whatever maybe Customize has thought this through, or maybe they haven't, and it's something we can bring their attention on.
If it's not thought through, right, then we can come through with a proposal and patch that, and probably do a security backport. Because that would be in kubectl at that point.
Right. And there was something there, right? There was originally a similar attack, which I think was resolved. The specific attack was resolved before Kubernetes was reintroduced into kubectl. So hopefully the class.
I was unaware of that. So hopefully it's been dealt with. Yeah, thanks for asking that question. I had not thought about the implication of changing to a local origin mid-flight. All the package manager stuff.
It is perhaps like you could put it in the bucket of don't do that, right? Like if I am installing a package and the package makes a reference to my local repo, like once I install that package, I'm already implicitly trusting it to a high degree anyway on my cluster. Like it can already do mean things to my cluster. Like, is it that much worse to do mean things to my local repository? Of course it is, but we don't necessarily have to prevent every attack. But I think the not going to a local repository from a remote repository feels like it might not be too hard.
Yeah, I mean, if you were looking at CVEs, that would either be like information leakage or privilege escalation that's unintended, because like a build machine will often have privileges to systems that are not the cluster, right? And
that's true. There's also
laptop will have source code on it that's not available inside the cluster and that kind of stuff. But yeah,
there's traversal from an internet to a intranet.
Yeah, but anything behind a NAT basically is yeah, food for thought.
Yes,
I'll keep that in mind.
We could simply have a paranoid flag which says, like, as a explicit list of things of sites or host names or prefixes it can traverse to, perhaps.
Yeah, I have a feeling like my instinct is telling me that this is going to require some contribution to customize. So cool, which is it's not a bad thing for our goals.
Right.
That is technically a requirement. Just how much of it's necessary in the POC is going to be a good question. So, okay. So we fleshed through concerns about crossing origin. Am I looking at the right document? No. We did not. Okay, somebody took notes. Thank you, whoever is doing that.
It's the magical Daniel, I think.
Yes. Daniel is...
Yeah, didn't do too much. Somebody else was talking to me at the same time.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So we talked about the security model stuff. We talked about API review, feedback, and the layout of what we're doing. Justin, do you want to do a demo now?
Sure, why not? Let's do a quick demo. Let's see if I can get this to work. To share the correct screen. I think it is that one. Let's see. Nope, maybe that one. This is slightly terrifying. Let's see, share. You see me say hello? Yes, okay, great. That's the right screen. I'll make it a little bigger. So we have nothing up my sleeve. I'm in an empty directory. I do kube builder init as normal. I'm using domain example.com, so we don't have to do the API review, but that is super fast. And create API, so very much the same. We're creating a dashboard, except we are using the pattern equals add-on flag here. So Jeff and I worked on this last year a bit, and for our kube builder, for our KubeCon talk. So Jeff, this should be very familiar to you. But this is updated to use kube builder 2.0. And again, thanks to Jeff, who updated the declarative add-ons pattern library that we are referencing. So this is now scaffolded it out. For some reason, I have to run make manifest. I'm not sure why. That's a kube builder thing, I guess. And now I can, for example, apply the CRD. And I can run, oh, let's have a quick look. So it built a controller. It's called dashboard controllers, and it built an API, the types. And if we have a look at, for example, that one, you can see that, for example, it has our add-on stuff pre-baked into it. And so the one thing we have to do is we have to download the correct manifest. So it's scaffolded an example manifest in here, and we are just going to replace it with the manifest which we sourced from the internet, because that's great. And then I should be able to run that controller. So it's KubeBuilder 2 is using Go modules as well. So no more vendor directory. Yay. Put that. And now, so the controller is running locally on my machine. And I should now be able to apply -F the example dashboard. I need to apply it to kube system because dashboard does not like to be installed elsewhere right now. And there goes the operator. So it says successfully reconciled. It applied it. And if we have a look, k get deployment and kube system, you can see there's the dashboard, and I can also, we have owner refs, so I can k delete dashboard and kube system all, and it goes off and it deletes all the owners, and so it is gone. Magic. But that was a fairly easy experience, I think. So I'm going to work a little bit more on that, hopefully get that merged into KubeBuilder, and hopefully at that point we will be, like, it should be much easier to create these things.
Yeah, I think the only thing I can think of beyond this is just the RBAC generation.
Yeah, the RBAC thing remains a pain. So obviously by running it locally, I didn't have to do that because I'm admin on my cluster locally. We do have to, so if I, controllers, I guess we could have something, we have the place, but it doesn't have the RBAC, the additional RBAC rules we need. I'm wondering whether we can like look at the manifest we create and somehow like extrapolate the correct RBAC policies or something like that. Maybe it's a separate tool.
Well, I think, yeah, just having a make target to convert the manifest into an RBAC rule.
Yeah, that could work, right?
Good. Yeah, and then if you
sure.
It should.
And really they are separate roles, right? Like we would want to aggregate the roles.
Yeah. I think in the example in the add-on operators, which is a collaborative add-on patterns repo, we do like separate them into three groups. We have the ones for the operator itself, we have the ones for applying it, and we have the ones which we need because we create an RBAC policy, because we create a role, and therefore we need the permissions of that role.
Yeah, so if we have those three groups being generated and aggregated together from the make, then you basically don't have to do anything hard for the happy path.
That's true. And I don't know whether we should do it in the make file or whether we should, I'll play around with that, I guess, this 2-week period while you are happily on the beach or wherever you are going. I will be grappling with RBAC.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. RBAC is the big one at this point, and I guess what's not clear in my mind is.
Yeah.
I guess the other thing is I'm not sure whether we should try to figure out a way to not even need those permissions, but I will ponder that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's worth thinking about.
Yeah.
You just have cluster admin, right? I mean,
I have cluster admin right now when I'm running locally, right? But like, exactly. We don't want to assume, I think we can assume the installer has cluster admin. So we could sort of split it, like the thing which installs the operator, but I don't know. Anyway, I feel like I can build a little tool and like experiment in the space. Build a tool, like, as you say, look at the manifest, extract out the RBAC rules, either as KubeBuilder annotations or as like a YAML thing that can be applied at the same time. And then
you could just like spit them out into an empty Go file, and then there you go.
Certainly it might be that the better workflow is to spit them out and you just copy and paste them into your Go file, right? I don't know.
Yeah.
Or we could have KubeBuilder. If I want to get really fancy, we could have KubeBuilder like accept the manifest that you want to like create as the first one instead of having an empty one and then do all that for you. But that just feels a little too magic. Like it doesn't have to be that easy, maybe.
I mean, like you know, a little shell glue goes a long way.
Yeah, and there's value in like making you having some degree of understanding of what's happening.
Yeah, and like having a log message, right? Like even if it's happening automatically, like after you template the thing out.
Yeah.
I mean, since you had to make manifests anyway, that like having a step there to make RBAC, manifest RBAC or something would make sense.
Yes, although I'm sort of surprised by that. Like, that feels like a bug, but that I have to make manifests, but I don't know.
Yeah, because you already went through the make for the create API.
Exactly, it was a little weird.
I actually just reinstalled KubeBuilder and I didn't get this the second version. Do I have to do that explicitly somehow?
The second version, I'm sorry.
Yeah, this KubeBuilder 2.0 stuff.
Yeah.
Their docs, initially their doc always made you install 2.0, but I don't know if they changed that because it's alpha. But if you get it from their GitHub page, the GitHub release, that will be 2.0.
Oh,
GitHub releases are always sorted by version, I've learned, no matter when. They're not sorted temporarily, which is sort of weird. Or at least I haven't figured out how to sort them temporarily.
I have...
But anyway, yes, 2.0 is nice because it has...
yeah, I'm on version 1 at the moment, so...
It has Go modules, which are a big win. And it also moves to controller runtime 2.0, which has this facade that makes things...
I would hope as well it's bumped the client Go version to 12.
I believe so. If 12 is the one that works with 114.
Yeah. Well, 11 does too.
Okay, well, right now, I guess the recommended one.
KubeBuilder 1 is pinned to 10, which is the 113.
-m. Let's see. It bumps client Go. I don't know how far it bumps it. How about that?
Yeah, I mean, just anything is good. So.
Controller runtime's on 111, client Go 111. Or sorry, client Go
11.
version.
It's on 11. It looks like it's on 11.
What is that versioning scheme?
It's 7.
Client Go is versioned separately because it's cross compatible. But yeah, like basically they're allowed to change like functions, signatures and stuff. That's actually what was breaking KubeBuilder, was the function signature change in the watch events.
11 is the one that works with, that is optimal, designed for 14.
Yeah.
So there's a skew of 3 right now, and has been for over a year.
I would imagine if we bump to 12, it still works. So.
Well, it's easier now because of GoMod, so.
Yeah. I'm going to try that out and see. Because, yeah, the structure of the directory is different and all that.
But yeah, KubeBuilder, it seems like a good change generally, and then yeah, so it doesn't feel like it's worth staying on KubeBuilder 1.
I tried to do a KubeBuilder create API without doing a KubeBuilder init, right? So I wouldn't get all the other stuff. And I think I just needed a project and a boilerplate text for the license.
That makes sense.
Does that sound reasonable? Like I'm just, it's just, these are kind of esoteric questions, like not really creating an add-on, but creating like something a little more basic.
You honestly may want to use just the controller tools project directly in that case. My light understanding of KubeBuilder is it's wrapping a lot of the controller tools stuff.
Do you mean, so not runtime, controller tools? I don't know about this.
So that's like the generator code generation stuff. So if you're just for like generating CRDs or generating API definitions, it may make sense to try that.
The docs are empty, basically.
Yeah, it may also just be a hack, and just because I know the underlying implementation, I might be guiding you the wrong way.
Yeah, because this is where controller gen is, and then is the API stuff in here, like in package CRD maybe? Yeah, I'm not seeing it immediately.
There's type scaffold, which sounds...
Because as far as things go, I'm actually not trying to do something controller related, right? I'm just trying to do something API related.
I personally would generate it using KubeBuilder and then delete files or remove code. For right now, this might change in 2.0. It might need require a main file as well now in 2.0 because it like now inserts additional things into main.go using like a marker. So it will probably be more fussy in KubeBuilder 2.0. And so I would scaffold it and then delete or extract or copy or something like that.
Just as people, who are involved in and like heavy users of KubeBuilder, like how much do you see in terms of overlap for component standard? Like I saw that there's like a webhook alpha implementation in there.
Are you going to have webhooks in there?
I mean, a component could be anything, right? So
maybe this is another pattern. Like the intention of this, the reason we did patterns externally in a different repo, and the reason why we're sort of like adding, or I'm adding it as a flag, is the idea that we accept there will be other patterns. So maybe a pattern component config or something. You can come up with a better name.
Does the pattern allow me to not have the manager? Or is the manager part of the basic init? That's what I kind of got.
The pattern can
anything.
Yeah, you can do whatever you want. I think you will really struggle to not have a manager. Just because it's like we're still using controller runtime. Like so, in KubeBuilder, you could change the code to generate, something completely different. If it's completely different, maybe they'll say just go build your own tool. I feel like manager is their thing, so it might be harder.
Yeah, but I guess it's just like, it's hard to get context on what some of these things do, so I might be misconstruing and feeling like they're bigger than they actually are. But I'm just like wondering what's setting up all of the informers and all that stuff. And to me, it sounds like that would be the manager's job, right?
I think the manager holds them. You're absolutely right. I think I would suggest if you are uncomfortable with the weight of the manager, whether real or perceived, that you talk to the KubeBuilder/controller runtime team.
We might just have some docs updates. Yeah.
Or that if it is genuinely heavy, that we reduce the weight, because I think they would much rather that there was a pattern. I'm putting words in their mouth. I suspect they would much rather there was a pattern component config than then you went and built up some new like similar but different KubeBuilder for components thing.
Yeah, like if we have a KubeBuilder pattern that like imports things from component base, right, and then like get some legacy flag stuff in there and can generate an API that conforms with config k8s.io and passes the testing framework that we're writing, then that would be really sweet. And probably also good for any controllers that we are that we're generating from the KubeBuilder project.
Yeah,
I noticed that like the logger is different and all that is interesting too. Like we're not using klog in there.
They're using Zap. I replace it with klog. I replace it with klogger very quickly, personally. I was going to say though, you're right. The KubeBuilder generated controller should be using component config. So maybe there's actually it shouldn't even be an optional like pattern. Maybe it should just be like you should add support for component config, or someone should add support for component config to the output.
Yeah, and then maybe there's a non-default option to like get a more minimal thing if somebody is not trying to do a controller. But,
or trying to do some. Yeah, I mean you can already like specify yes or no. So maybe you can specify component config yes or no, but.
Yeah, like I'm just thinking, so like if I want to make a new kubelet, a kubelet is a controller, right? But if I want to make a new kubeADM, that's not at all.
And I guess the question is, would you create a new kubeADM by saying resource equals true, controller equals false, component config equals true?
Yeah, and then do a bunch of create APIs like for different types.
Yeah, and the other thing is maybe you do make kubeADM a controller, and then this like the work that Ilya was asking for about the idea of how do we run a controller not with a Kubernetes API? Maybe we actually say that you actually can write it as a
Yeah. It wasn't clear to me when using the CLI. Can I create an API with multiple kinds? Can I pass kind?
I don't believe so, but you can call create API multiple times.
With the same API group?
Or different API groups.
Yeah.
You can so you call init once, but then you call create API as many times as you want.
Yeah. And then any substructs are just manual code edits.
I believe so.
Yeah. Cool. Makes sense. I'm starting to understand the kubebuilder flow a little bit. So that's helpful for me. Thank you. Hopefully it's not too much of a divergence for other people on the call.
I don't know if they have do they even have a meeting? We should probably go talk to them at their meeting. I don't know if they have I don't know where they are.
For sure.
It's Wednesday, this Wednesday at 1.
Thank you, Sean.
You're welcome. It's underneath the SIG API machinery and community.
Okay. Cool. I know where to find that.
And if you can get the meeting invite if you join the KubeBuilder Duo group. That's where like all that.
Oh, there's a group.
Happens. Yeah.
Like there's a mailing list. Okay, cool. Okay. Yeah, that sounds like there's going to be some collab there in the next like month and a half, probably.
I'll see you all there tomorrow.
I'm not going to make it tomorrow, I don't think, but yes, I will probably.
I have jury duty tomorrow. I've been summoned.
Yeah.
Bad reasons to not be at work.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you guys would like me to add to the agenda for us to talk about? Like if you guys are going to join, or
Given that it sounds like Justin and I won't be able to join tomorrow, I think that would probably be on Jeff or Daniel.
And I'm going to try to join going forwards. Just tomorrow is not a good day.
Not good. At least they pay you, Justin.
$5 or something. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could attend tomorrow to talk about generating component config, sort of as part of the as the KubeBuilder API experience or a init experience.
Probably init.
Yeah.
I guess. Yeah. I mean, the weird part is you do have to generate an API for it. So maybe it isn't an API. But it would have to be plumbed into the consequences from init, which is weird.
Do you have an example, like a code snippet of what you think it should look like the end result?
So like what, let's think of something to configure. So what about the informer's pulse, right? The polling rate, or the rate limits. All that stuff should be configurable in some area, and it should probably be done like for the runtime portion, right? So this is a config API that needs to configure the runtime of the manager. And I think the manager is generated on init, right? But you need an API that's generated to configure the manager.
And then is it an API that the individual operator would also customize?
So yeah, I mean, that's like, if like in thinking in an operator controller use case, right? Things like auth and metrics and all that stuff. I believe right now they are controlled via flags. And then I also saw like there's a sidecar thing in there that does like an auth proxy. So like all of that stuff right now is like an operational concern that doesn't have an API that's versioned or anything like that, which is why you need component config. Ideally, all of those things would be enabled in the kind of init machinery and then controlled with a component config. So that stuff is just things that KubeBuilder does and preps automatically depending on what you're doing. But then if I was building an API with KubeBuilder and say like not creating a controller, right, but then trying to do something else with that API, like the add-on installer component or kubeadm or some kind of like cluster API bootstrap thing that isn't a controller but a one-time execution, kind of UX, then feasibly you might want to put any number of configuration flags or configuration options into the component config. And so you'd be extending that struct at that point, which would be similar to like if you were extending your CRD for an operator or an aggregated API server.
And I guess I wonder if I wonder if there's sort of a base set that is like the controller runtime component config, and then you'd expect something like an add-on controller component config, and then a core DNS controller config, or if that would be sort of a single flattened config.
I mean, having types and substructs certainly makes sense.
Because I was thinking as you were talking about like the security models, like one configuration might be like a whitelist or blacklist of where you can pull from. Let's say I don't want you pulling anything from HTTPS, only file or something, or only Git. And whitelisting domains. And I could see that being just like a generic configuration option that you'd want to expose.
That sounds like an operator style thing. Yeah. Right. So like any operator that reaches out to resources that are not Kubernetes. So like if you were building external DNS controller with KubeBuilder, right, you would want some place to configure the controller itself. Maybe. I mean, a lot of that can be done through the CRDs. So on a per CRD basis, but
yeah, that makes sense. So we'll talk to them and see if they've just given any thought around using KubeBuilder to generate component config and those APIs.
Yeah.
And I'm also curious if they've thought about, in the context of operators, exposing like the manager options and those sort of things in the same way.
Yeah, I mean, basically anything regarding the shared informer, and with the metrics server and also the RBAC stuff, like having that sidecar thing in there was really quite surprising to me. Do you know what I'm talking about? The auth sidecar? There's a customized patch for it.
Yes, that appeared somewhat recently.
Yeah, so basically it seems like the manager command itself doesn't actually have delegated auth. It's put into a different component that's then like this sidecar proxy that everything talks to the manager through, and the manager talks to everything through. That was a little interesting to me to see it done that way. I feel like it could probably be done like in the binary itself, but that gets into a bunch of like code generation that's probably harder to do, and so it just doesn't meet the immediate needs of the project right now. yeah, I mean, those are all areas that I'm kind of curious about in like how we can help and unify a little bit more with component config. Component config is definitely like a cluster lifecycle API machinery joint venture. So I think we all have some skin in the game there with making it work better. Sean, sorry, I don't think we've ever met, but do you run the KubeBuilder meeting? Or
Kind of, yeah. No, yes, kind of. I'm the one that added it and tried to stay on top of it. But like Sunil and Sully are the ones that are really active in like control runtime and KubeBuilder. I'm not as active in the projects themselves. So
okay. Does Sully, like Sully or Stefan Shermansky like join those meetings ever?
Sully does. Stefan does not.
Okay. Cool. Cool. Just trying to figure out some meeting I've never been to before. So yeah. Yeah. Well, as far as add-ons go, I know we've just kind of talked a bunch of creative stuff around KubeBuilder. So does anyone else have anything that they wanted to bring up or anything that made them uncomfortable with what we kind of started talking about? Otherwise, we might be able to close out this meeting. Cool.
Sounds like we're all done.
Yep.
All right. Thanks a lot, everyone, and see you in 2 weeks.
Yeah, thank you all. This is a big help for me.
Thank you. Have a good holiday, Lee.
Yeah.
Everybody.
Enjoy.